If you enjoy truthful and heartfelt conversations to inspire you to become a better version of yourself, empowering stories will help you. Hello, Kate. How are you?
Hello, Ada. I'm really well. Thank you.
I am delighted to have you here. And we've been talking a little bit before this recording, and we have found that we have so many things in common. And what I've discovered in these few minutes is that Kate has such a big, powerful message to share with the world. I've also found out, if you allow me, that she's coming from a very big picture. Let's put it that way. Big picture look at the world and how to improve it. I met her through VIP 100, a group of beautiful people put together by Thomas and Penny Power. And if you go to her LinkedIn, you would see that she's a facilitator for change, which I love. I mean, being the vessel that provides this change for a better world. I love that. And her core, let's say the core business or stronger spots could be communication. But now she's going to tell us everything about that and how the power of our communication, the power of the word can change, everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Kate, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's been so lovely to meet you. And I do really find that, as you say, communication is one of the key things that we all can improve. I feel as if, although I've been a communication consultant for probably over 20 years now, I do think that it's a constant curiosity of how we can improve our conversations with each other. And I think it's all the small little things, the more that we improve our emotional intelligence, the more that we can really have conversations with people that maybe are completely different from us, it is a real sign of a deep connection, I think. And I had a dialogic session with a group of Buddhists that I know. And we were talking about how we should sometimes reach out to people that are completely different from us and try to have a conversation where we're not triggered, trying to really connect with people that are different from us and have a different view. And I think it's actually one of the most challenging things for us as humans to do, because we always want to be with people that are like us. But I think that the power of change, I believe, comes from when we can really listen to each other, even when we feel that we're very different and even when we have very differing views. And I think it's really possible for people with two different views to come together and have a really interesting dialogue, a really interesting conversation that makes it deeper and better and a more interesting outcome, more innovative outcome.
Is it about the words, Kate, or is it about our attitude? What is it? Is it both? What is it? What is it?
I think it is both. It's a really interesting question, because I teach people how to write their message, right? Write messages or write their speech, or, I used to work in news and current affairs. So it'd be like really understanding what your message is. And, if I had been doing this 5 years ago, I would have come completely prepared with my written messages that would be rhyming, that would have opposition in them. We need to increase connection to decrease war, these kind of things. But actually, the more I have connected with communication and the more that I have trusted myself and that whole Brené Brown thing about I am enough, the more I truly believe that if you connect to your heart, the more that you really have done the thinking about things, that you can trust your words. so I think it's actually, if I would use different words than attitude and words, I think it's actually about alignment. I think it's actually about truth, and it's about opening up your own vulnerability. And by doing that, attitude and words become one, I think.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. It's about values as well, isn't it? When you say, when we have done all the thinking before, I suppose that you refer, or that's the image that came to my mind, is what is my core value, or what is my set of core values? Is it compassion, or is it to, I don't know, to sell tires because I have a shop and everything I have in mind is I want to sell tires to whoever it is, and I'm going to talk only about tires. Whatever it is okay, but is that what you're talking about? That subtle?
I think, it's subtle intention. Like, before I go into any conversation or facilitation, because quite often I have to be quite challenging, and your job as a facilitator is to take people to a deeper level of conversation and learning. And learning's tough. Learning takes a lot of energy. Yeah. And I think, so before I go into any session, I have an intention to bring my best self, and I have an intention that I will hold the space in a way that will encourage people to grow. And I think that to do that means that you need to be balanced, you need to breathe, you need to, in a way, open up your heart, so that you will not be triggered. And in some ways it's easier in a work environment than it is in a personal environment. But, I think it's intention would be the word that I would use. And in some ways that my value system is about enabling people to grow. But I think the intention for me is compassion, because I think compassion in that word is challenge. Compassion is actually a really difficult thing to do. It's not empathy, it's not connecting with people, or it's not even active listening, because compassion is about so many different bits, and some of it is about really changing parts of yourself so that you can listen to another human being, that again might be different from you.
Well, now that you bring the word compassion here, I'm thinking of the first time that I hear it, but I was listening to the word compassion. And it was an event in which there was a monk and several of the monks, and he was talking about compassion, compassion, compassion. And I was raised as a Catholic, and what I understood back then as a Catholic about compassion is, if you see some person in the street and they need, I don't know, money or soup or food or clothes, or you would give them something, and that would be compassionate, to give them something that they lack of. And then with that monk, it was compassion, compassion, compassion. And I couldn't tell the difference between what's compassion, what's love. And it took me years, Kate. And now the way I say it, and tell me because I might be completely wrong, but now for me, compassion is to look at the person who's in front of me and see that person as the same soul as I am, as part of something that is just one. So it's a different body. This is my body, if this is their body, but at a different level, we are exactly the same. So it's just that if that body is going through different circumstances, like today, they don't have enough to eat, but I can see compassionately that we are the same, then I would see not the lack of food, but the abundance of love, of light, of resources, of whatever it is. That's the way I understood it. Does it make sense?
Oh, completely. One of the things that I teach is about unconscious bias and about diversity and inclusion. And I think that so many people that have these discussions in these courses that I do, we don't realize sometimes we are unconscious of it, but we may have judgments. And I think we as humans can be so judgmental of ourselves as well. Like we judge ourselves really hard, like that tone of voice that we sometimes have and speak to ourselves.
You cow, you're eating chocolate again.
yourself like that. But also these like unconscious kind of attitudes, that the more that we understand our unconscious, people will say, how can you understand your unconscious when you're unconscious of it? But the more we become aware and waken up to our judgments of other people, our assumptions of other people, the more that we can erase them. I mean, like, we know that in unconscious bias, if we simply say, I know I have biases, so I am going to choose not to be biased in the next conversation, just simply giving ourselves that instruction before we go into any meeting means that we are less likely to make biased assumptions. So it's like small little things that can have really, really big impact. And I completely agree that being compassionate means that we step beyond those assumptions, step beyond those judgments, and connect with another human being from where they are at. And I think actually that can be quite challenging, because people sort of, how can I say this? I used to think that because I've worked an awful lot on my emotional intelligence, sometimes we're in a situation where we're with somebody that maybe lack emotional intelligence. But how do we have an honest conversation with somebody where we feel as if we need to still be heard, rather than take the moral high ground of going, well, I'm more emotionally intelligent, they don't understand, I'll let that go. And I feel as if there's another level at which we need to be truthful with each other and challenge somebody, but in a compassionate way. Does that make sense? And I think it's quite a difficult thing, because I think sometimes if we're more emotionally intelligent than somebody we're talking to, does that sound, I don't want that to sound like
to be superior or inferior. It's just to be different, to be at different levels of understanding, of awareness, or for whatever it is.
And I think sometimes that when you're in that situation, you can feel your ego coming in. You can go, well, they're not quite there yet, But actually, if you can not have that thought and go, actually, I've got something that I can learn here. I've got, what am I learning in this conversation? Then you start uncovering a place where you are truly compassionate. You're taking people from where they are at. And I think sometimes we can get a little bit moralistic about certain things. And I think if we can all show up really by opening our heart and thinking we've always got something to learn, then that we can take that compassion to another level.
Yeah, it makes so much sense, because what I think, Kate, is that we can always learn something from anything. Mm-hmm. And if you think of ants, and you look at an ant and you think, oh my God, it's a tiny little creature like this, and there are more than 2,000 species and blah, blah, blah. And what do they know? How am I going to explain to that ant what a mobile phone is? There's no freaking way. So that's where we can say, oh, I'm superior to you, ant, because you don't know what a mobile phone is. And it doesn't matter how well I explain it to you, you won't understand it because you don't have the brain. However, look at all the books that have been written about ants, and look at architectural structures that have been made based on studying ants and organizations, and just a lot to learn. So it's, again, as you were saying before, is our judgment. Oh, I'm superior to the ant, but hold on, is different. It's just that the ant is in this circle and we are in this circle. We have some things in common, but we are in slightly different realities. Does it make sense?
Yeah, the TED talk that I did was all, I talked a lot about ants. Ants can teach us, it's kind of, was what it was about. And I think that, that whole idea that when we work together in that collective consciousness, that collective understanding. I work a lot with teams. I work a lot with maybe people that have got lots of different ideas and how to cohesively work together. And I think ants show you really well how to do it. The ant structures that are made are so complex and beautiful that they communicate with each other through smell. And what we think was random, but it's not. It's actually a communication through the act of smell. And I think that we, in fact, Owen today was saying that when he's doing a marathon, that if you run next to somebody, you kind of naturally start going at the same pace as them and breathe at the same time as them, and then energetically you both run faster because you feel more connected. And I think I called it intuitive collaboration. When things go wrong, humans have a tendency to just pull together and mirror one another to move forward. Now, I actually, my TED talk was the start of quite an interesting exploration for me, because what I was actually talking about was what I now know is a synesthesia that I have. A synesthesia is when two of your senses kind of are combined in your kind of human makeup. And
it's like when you see a 3, but then you see yellow or something like that. Just for for people who could be listening and don't know what it is.
An example would be, yes, so they would see a 3 as a color, or the guy that owns Lush, I don't know, the bath bombs, when he smells something, he sees color. Or some people, some people hear music and see color, or so it's where the visual and the auditory, or the touch and auditory are all kind of linked and connected. I have another one which is called mirror touch synesthesia. So, for example, you right now, you're putting your pen in your mouth, so I can actually feel that sensation in my body. Even though it's not there. So what I felt was on this side, so it was slightly connected. So it usually happens with me, if I feel that I've connected in with somebody, then it usually isn't just the mirror, it's the same side as the other person's using. But the mirror touch is something that Joel Salinas, I learned, has, and he is a doctor, and he uses his mirror touch to help connect with people, this empathy, this deeper empathy that you feel in your body. And actually my TED talk was, I was sort of trying to explain it without knowing I had it. Because for me, when I have been with something, this thing that Owen was saying about when you run with somebody, or you dance with somebody, or you connect with somebody.
Yeah, sometimes it's called entrainment. Well, for instance, the cells in our heart deal beat at the same time. That's called entrainment. When you put metronomes together on a table, and they start each one going at their own rhythm, and then at the end they keep moving all at the same time. That's called entrainment.
Oh, I have not come across that term.
Now you know.
No, I know. Thank you. I'm going to look that up. Thank you. But I do think that, we all are actually mirroring animals. It's just that mirror touch means that, I've got it a little bit higher stimulus than some other people. Yeah. But I think that we'll learn a lot more about how mirror touch is something that we all have. I do think that there is this connection that we have when we do feel safe with other people, when we do feel connected to them. We do, as you say, get this entrancement. Is it entrancement? Is that right?
Entrainment.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes, it's really important. And I think a lot of compassion in some ways is being able to entrainment. But I also think that sometimes we need to be able to not link in with people. And I think boundaries sometimes are other things we need to be aware of when we think of compassion. I think sometimes we really need to just not connect and own our own truth. And I think this is why conversations quality conversations require this beautiful dance of connection, but also the boundary of owning your own truth and sometimes standing up for your own truth
Yeah.
Rather than letting yourself seep out. And I've learned that because of my mirror touch, because what I learned from reading about it is that sometimes with mirror touch, you don't know where you stop and somebody else begins. And once you realize that, you become more boundaried. And I really think it's important sometimes to really know, no, this is what I believe, this is what's important to me, and I'm not going to let that seep out, you know. And I think the boundaries are a real important part of compassion, empathy, you know, and connection with other people.
Yeah. The standard that I take, so to speak, is it adds up, I connect. It takes away from me, I need to put my boundaries. Because otherwise they become this kind of people, sometimes their energy is sucking up mine, and then it's useless for both. So we're not doing them any favor, and we're not doing ourselves any favor.
But I think that if we're wanting to help people to make positive change in the world, if you look at Greta Thunberg, she puts herself into places where people actively don't want her there, you know. And I think the ability to stand in that place where people are negative towards you is a very vulnerable place to be. And I think the more that we can help each other stand in those places and feel that we can speak our truth and be heard, I mean, it's actually a real challenge for our world at the moment, you know, because so much in social media is about commenting and having opinions. And so much of the media, especially news, is about knowing what answer you want to get and trying to get to it. Having conversations where you allow them to evolve and explore, you know, are conversations which, you know, we need to find places where we can have them more, I feel.
How do you see that this is going to evolve? Because maybe there are like two different strands of people going more negative and all about narcissism and look at me, and then all that is not true. And some people are just holding on their truth and they really want to make a difference in the world. So those two paths, how do you see that they can come close?
I think it's through dialogue. I think we need to listen to other people's opinions. So I work a lot in cross-party work with politicians. So that means that in a group, if it, like say you're working in a select committee that holds a government department to account, if you are being really party political, so you might. So I work in the Commonwealth. I work in the Commonwealth with Commonwealth parliamentarians. And if you are only wanting to hold on to your party line, you're not going to help the government think well. What you find, and we've done, the Institute for Government has done lots of research on this, is that if you have loads of differing opinions and come together to try to help the government to think better, to improve the way that they are implementing their policies, then you are going to be the critical friend. And I really believe that innovation comes from listening to diverse voices to then help improve the way that businesses, that governments, that individuals run their teams. So I think it's about, I really believe that innovation comes from diversity. And this is why I think that the more that we have more women in senior positions, the more we have more transgender individuals in these situations, the more that we have, you know, disability, you know, different races and people with different heritages, the more the diversity of the voices, the more that we will come to more deep understanding of our world, I suppose, or of our business.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we see the world through all the filters that we have, each one of us. And the filters, as you're saying, is race, sex, age, country, color, sex orientation, whatever it is, education. And then if each one of us is looking at a tiny little piece of the puzzle, if we put all the pieces together, we'll have a bigger version than if we only have one group looking at the same piece all the time.
And I think one of the reasons that we do like to be with like people that are like us is because we feel safe and we feel as if we belong.
The freaking comfort zone.
Yes, Maslow's needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think if we somehow create places where we can feel safe with different opinions, and not feel as if our opinion's being threatened, but feel as if it's being stretched. It's my new favorite word, actually. My previous favorite word was emerge, but my now favorite word is stretch. I just did an interview with this guy called Mark McCargo, who is a solutions-focused coach and used to be a nuclear physicist. And he uses this idea of stretching the mind. And I think that when we stretch our ideas, we can't unsee them. And sometimes we might be like that elastic and pull back into our kind of comfort zone. But I think if we stretch ourselves and our thinking, then it means that we've got more space, more opportunities to grow, more opportunities to connect, and more opportunities to do better, bigger, bolder actions,
Yeah, but the stretch, why are we scared of stretching? Because we have fear of the unknown. Number one, our brain wants to keep us safe, I think. Number two is the self-love. If I've been criticized, or what are they going to think? And if I say this, if I speak my truth, they won't love me. They will, I don't know, cast me away or whatever it is. Would you agree with that?
Oh, completely. And yet what we realize is that the more that we can feel vulnerable, the more that we can share our, how we're feeling and our truth and, the challenges that we're facing, the more people connect with us, which takes us back to the start, like quality conversations are about really aligning to that truth and being honest about, about how we are. And one of the things that I love about COVID and lockdown has been that so many businesses are now having well-being conversations, having conversations around mental well-being, and they're embedding it as part of their everyday conversations. And that's a good thing, and we need to keep that on, after it. I hope that will keep going as we move forward.
Yeah, that's a big wake-up call. What's important, what's interesting, what is it that it's number one in my list of priorities?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have that well-being, we can't show up and hold space and have these difficult conversations,
Yeah.
Really look after have our self-care so that we are strong,
Before we finish, would you like to tell us something about your podcast?
Oh yeah, so it's coming out quite soon. It's called Listen to the Whisper. The reason it's called Listen to the Whisper is because I heard a talk by Steven Spielberg, and he said that our dreams don't come at us with lights and headlights, and they come up behind us like a whisper, and we need to listen to that whisper every day if we want to find our dream. And so I'm interviewing people who have explored that whisper and made the transformations in their lives. And I feel really excited about sharing some of the amazing journeys that some people have gone on, from working in the Shell, the oil industry, to becoming a shaman, or from people who've gone from nuclear physicists to being self-focused coaches. So it's coming out soon. Listen to the Whisper.
It's funny that you say that, because in one of my last books, which is The Story I Didn't Want to Tell, it's a journal that I wrote while I was going through my process of separation. And one day that I felt really, really down, I came across that video.
Really?
Yeah. So it's in my book. It's there. It's written, because it woke me up. It's never going to shout at you. It's just listen to that whisper and follow what's inside you. Follow your truth. So, wow. Wow.
That's so special.
Yeah,
Wow.
indeed. Indeed. Wow. Kate, wonderful. When people want to contact you,
Yes,
to
contact me
contact
on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really good. It's Kate Faragher, or on Twitter, Kate_Faragher. They're probably the best ways to keep in touch. My company is also called Bespoke Skills, but Kate Faragher is probably the best way.
Yeah, we'll put all that underneath the video for people to contact you. And thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Lovely to talk to you today.
Thank you.